Greetings. Welcome to another edition of the Monster's Den. Today we are once again going to visit Hammer Horror. I'm your host, Pete Pardo. Thanks again for tuning in, everybody, for this little break from the normal music talk for a little discussion of one of my favorite topics, horror films. And it doesn't get much better than Hammer Horror. Of course, Hammer the Great British film studio, which released so many classic gothic horror films starting in the 50s. Actually, they started a little bit in the 40s, actually, but mainly putting out films in the 50s, 60s, and into the 70s. So today we're going to take a look at another triple feature, three of my favorite films from Hammer. I like all of them, actually, but dig these three as well. So the first, we're going to go to 1966. The Reptile, directed by John Gilling, starring Noel Willman, Jacqueline Pierce, Ray Barrett, Jennifer Daniel, and the always wonderful Michael Ripper, who shows up in so many of these Hammer classics. In fact, he has a pretty substantial role in this film, which is kind of great to see. So this is basically a story. You've got a father and son. The father is somewhat of a historian, a scientist. They travel to the Far East, and they come across this ancient tribe, out in the Far East. And the daughter actually, I'm not going to give too much away, but they come back and something's different with this family, with the father and daughter, right? So back again in the little tiny town of Cornwall, or in Cornwall, the town is called Clagmore Heath, which is the name of the make-believe town in Cornwall. So what winds up happening is there's a murder in the beginning of the film. So this one guy gets killed, he gets bitten, his face turns black, he foams at the mouth, he's dead. Gets bitten by some strange creature. But the townspeople kind of cover it all up, right? We don't even want to talk about it. So in comes the brother of this gentleman who's dead, him and his new wife, right, that recently married, come to the funeral of his brother, and they decide they're going to take over his house and they're going to live in his house, right? So little by little, he starts to meet the local townspeople who, speak of this kind of plague that's been happening that nobody wants to talk about. People are dying from this, but nobody wants to kind of get into it. So apparently there's something really kind of wicked going on in this town that nobody wants to talk about. Little by little, you start to see some of the players here. They meet one of their neighbors, who is this guy I talked about, this kind of scholarly gentleman, and his daughter who went to the Far East, right? And so he's a little weird. He keeps telling them, he lives next door. He keeps telling them that they should sell the house and leave and get out. The young couple wind up meeting his daughter, who's actress Jacqueline Pierce. And she seems like a very nice, young, beautiful, but very tortured soul. Obviously, there's something going on there. So little by little, the things start to unfold and things start to happen. And before you know it, there's this strange, serpent creature wreaking havoc in this little old town. That's the kind of basis for this whole thing. Who is it? How did it happen? How does it all unfold? Pretty cool film. And I think the performances are quite good. The makeup effects are pretty interesting, very, very different, but that's basically take a look at the back of the Blu-ray here. Pretty fast moving film. Like I said, good performances, kind of chilling, good music, very well directed as always, and a pretty cool climax. I really dig the climax. It's a shame you don't see the kind of serpent woman enough in the film. She's mainly saved for the end, but still pretty cool. Some of the effects are pretty horrific. The death scenes, pretty horrible. So, whenever anybody gets bitten, it's almost like getting bitten by a cobra. Obviously the area around, they always seem to get bit in the neck, starts to blacken and burst and bubble. You start to foam at the mouth before you know it, and half of your body turns black and decays, and boom, you're dead. So, pretty interesting film. I think the a lot of the recent Hammer film releases on Blu-ray, really, really well done. I mean, if you have a high definition TV, and specifically like a 4K TV, man, these Blu-rays look great. Some of these films, I mean, again, we're looking at 50 years old, look so crisp and clear. The color is so bright. The definition just absolutely amazing. I was pleasantly surprised how good this film looks on my large 4K TV. Wonderful stuff. Dig that a lot. The Reptile. All right, next up, we're going to go to 1967 for what is the third in a 4-movie series from Hammer centering on the Mummy. This is The Mummy's Shroud. Also, the last film to actually include a mummy in bandages, although not the most convincing bandages here. The mummy in this film actually looks like almost like he's wearing like a tracksuit or something with bandages around the head and certain parts of the arms, but then it's just kind of weird looking. It looks like whatever suit they buried him in way back in the day. Really didn't decay too much, and they didn't really wrap him up exactly like some of the earlier mummies, but pretty cool film. This also stars Mr. Michael Ripper, plays a cool little role in this film. You've got Elizabeth Sellers, Maggie Kimberly, John Phillips, okay, as well as the great Andre Morell. Okay, Andre Morell has a smaller part in this film. He's actually, he's also in The Hound of the Baskervilles, Plague of the Zombies. He plays a smaller role in this film. He's pretty prominent in the beginning of the film, but then I won't say any more. But basically, again, another tale of going and digging up an ancient Egyptian mummy that has this curse attached to it, and when you do that, the curse is now going to happen to you. So it's another one of these films where they bring the mummy back to life, and then one by one he's going to try and kill off everybody who kind of was part of that expedition group, right? That's how it all goes. So some people love the Mummy films, some people don't. Everybody always seems to love the original Mummy with Christopher Lee as the Mummy and Peter Cushing, right? As well as, they're going back to the Karloff days, right? Everybody loves the original Mummy films, both by Universal and Hammer, but a lot of people seem to have issues with the sequels that came after. I think the Hammer sequels are pretty fun for what they are. Again, an aimless mummy walking around killing people, grabs them, chokes them, and all that kind of stuff. But I think this one works pretty well. Like I said, the acting throughout the film is top-notch as always, and in a way, especially there's the guy who's funding this whole expedition project. He's kind of a dick, all right, and you don't really feel too bad about him getting his just dues here for kind of wronging everybody else and stealing the spotlight of even though he funded it, he wasn't the guy out there in the expedition, right? But he takes all the credit for it and everything. So you don't really mind it when he gets his just due. But pretty good film. Again, I dig Mummy films. I don't mind them. I think this is a good one. Good direction as always. This particular film was directed by John Gilling as well. In fact, I think he did both The Reptile and The Mummy's Shroud right around the same time. Produced by Michael Carreras, obviously, who did a lot of work on the Hammer films. So definitely one to check out. I enjoy that one as well. And last but not least here in our triple feature of Hammer horror is 1971's Countess Dracula, starring, of course, none other than Ingrid Pitt, as well as Nigel Green and a very, very young Leslie Ann Down. I think she was only 17 or 18 years old in this particular film. This one directed by Peter Sadsdy and produced by Alexander Paul. So this is actually, it's called Countess Dracula. Really has nothing to do with Dracula. It has nothing to do with vampires, actually. This is basically the tale of Countess Elizabeth Bathory, okay, which is one of the oldest known serial killers from way, way back in the day, who killed lots of young people for all sorts of weird reasons. Here in the film, basically this whole story starts. You've got Countess Bathory, she's not actually called Countess Bathory here. She actually goes by Countess Elizabeth Nadasdy, so they don't use the Bathory name, but it is based on the Countess Bathory, Elizabeth Bathory, the historical figure. But Elizabeth Nadasdy, her husband, the Count, dies. Okay, and of course they're very wealthy and whatnot. So the movie starts that they're at the reading of the will after his funeral, and the Countess is actually an older woman here. So here you have Ingrid Pitt with the makeup on, looking like an older woman, not too old, but older. And basically, in the will, okay, she is left half of the estate. The other half of the estate goes to their daughter, who's away, I believe, in school at the time, and that's Leslie Ann Downs' character. So the Countess is kind of upset that she didn't just get everything. Okay, but during this particular reading of the will, she winds up meeting one of the new next door neighbors, who is a much younger gentleman, very attractive gentleman, and she kind of falls for him. But knowing she's an old woman, it's like not much you can do there, right? So as the film starts to unfold, at one point in time, she's kind of upset about the decision, not being the sole heir to everything, and she's having her servant girl prepare a bath for her. Bath water's too hot. She's upset. How do you expect me to take a bath in this? It's so hot. She winds up like slapping her. And when she does that, she cuts her and she gets some of the blood on her face, right? So the servant girl goes running to her room, crying hysterically. She's got a cut on her face, all that kind of stuff. Well, then Countess goes and looks in the mirror, and where the blood sat on her face, all of a sudden now her face is 20, 30 years younger, and the rest of her face still wrinkly. What's going on here? Obviously something happened. Okay, the blood of this young girl is making her shed years and decades in age. So for a woman who really wants to capture her youth once again, and also has the eyes for the young guy who moved in next door, she needs to kind of revisit this whole thing. So what does she do? She goes upstairs and she winds up killing the young servant girl and taking the blood and bathing herself in it. And before you know it, here you have a young Countess Elizabeth Nadasdy, or Elizabeth Bathory, as like 20 or 25-year-old. Of course, Ingrid Pitt, totally hot, blonde hair, beautiful, great body, and whammo. So she starts to go and meet up with the guy next door, and he obviously fancies her and all this kind of stuff. But what we find out is that the effects of this de-aging brought on by taking the blood of the young woman does not last long. So you know where this is going, right? So now she has to go and get and kill young ladies to help her keep her youthful appearance, right? But then we find out that it's only the blood of virgins that's actually going to do anything, because she winds up killing like one of the women from the pub, who's actually a prostitute, and that doesn't do anything. In fact, it makes it worse. She looks even more old, right? All of a sudden she's got these warts and all this kind of stuff. So a really kind of cool film that, where she, and Ingrid Pitt does a fantastic job in this film. Not only playing the older Countess, but also the younger, beautiful Countess, and going back and forth, and how tortured she is with wanting to keep this whole charade going with the youthful appearance, to the point of she even intercepts the daughter coming home, all right, to kidnap her so that, she then portrays the daughter. Because apparently the daughter's been gone for a while, so nobody really remembers what she looks like, or even as she's like almost an adult. So now the Countess in her younger form is portraying the daughter. That's who she says to the young guy next door. So they start up a whole romance. They're planning to get married, all this kind of stuff. And meanwhile, there's the captain of the guard, who's an older gentleman who actually has been secretly in love with the Countess for many, many years. And she kind of convinces him to do her bidding. So he's all going out and finding women, whole 9 yards. Anyway, very well done. It's not so much a typical hammer horror film. It's certainly not a vampire film, but the fact that the fact they use the Dracula name is kind of bizarre. They actually don't utter Countess Dracula till the very end of the film. Okay, I won't spoil it, but it's got nothing to do with vampires, but more how she's using the blood of virgins to obviously shed decades off of her appearance, that sort of thing. And they go throughout the film back and forth with her with the old makeup on, and her obviously looking much younger and pretty hot. What I find is really interesting, and you really can't, unless you read about or hear about it, you can't even tell. I was watching special features, is that they say how they dubbed Ingrid Pitt's lines throughout the entire film. And you really can't even tell. I mean, I was sitting there after I heard that. I'm sitting there watching it, and it sounds like her, because I've seen her in other films. And again, I'm not sure. Maybe the version that's on here is with her original voice. But I heard from the original release, they dubbed all of her lines with another actress, who apparently sounds very similar to the way Ingrid Pitt sounds, but you really can't tell. I mean, if you watch close, I mean, it looks perfect, sounds perfect. If I would have not heard that, I would have never known. I would have just assumed that was her voice throughout the whole thing. But anyway, pretty cool film, really lavishly shot. The high definition looks fantastic in this Blu-ray release here. This is a Synapse Films. We got Synapse Films. We got Scream Factory on both of these other ones here. But I think the costumes. It's a period piece, obviously. Ingrid Pitt looks fantastic, especially obviously when she's in the her younger form, and the really cool makeup to make her look all sorts of old and haggard and stuff later on. And great acting all around by everybody. Little bits of nudity, little bits of gore, not too much. This is, like I said, not so much a horror film, but more a period piece that has kind of horrific elements in it. It's certainly not a vampire film, so don't think this has anything to do with Dracula or vampires. It does not, but still pretty cool, and a fantastic role for Ingrid Pitt, who of course you know her from Vampire Lovers as well as The Wicker Man, and countless other films. I'm trying to think. There's like 2 or 3 other notable films that she's appeared in, which I can't remember off the top of my head, but definitely cool stuff. Check it out. Here you can see both the young and the old, right? Good job there. There she is on the back. So very cool. More Hammer horror for your Blu-ray collection. Definitely check them out. Lots of chills and excitement, and typical Hammer horror elements are on all 3 of those. So for the musical stuff, visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. Stay tuned for lots more musical explorations coming up this week. We will have another Monsters Den episode or 2 this week as well. Rich Catino and I are going to be doing an episode all on Vincent Price classics, so that is coming up later this week. We've got tomorrow night, Monday night, we've got the Hudson Valley Squares. Okay, coming up with another great show, all about cool albums that have concepts based on stories from a book, a movie, a comic book, a literary classic, that sort of thing. So that's coming up tomorrow, and Chris Allo and I will also be ranking the studio albums of progressive power metal, symphonic power metal, progressive metal, extreme metal, veterans, epica, great female-fronted band, Dutch band. So you want to make sure you check that out as well. So that's all coming up on the channel, and lots more this week, so stay tuned for all that, and we'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.